Bad news, listeners. Guess what? There's no more Obama for your mama. He's leaving office this year. We got a new presidential election. I'm sure you've seen it. You can't avoid this rat race. It doesn't matter what news you follow, unless it's just industry like me. If you like that, listen to 2 Cents, by the way. But it's happening. It's changing. There's going to be either a crazy millionaire, a woman, or a banana in office soon. We'll find out in the near future. But I thought this pick was very timely. Steve had never seen it. Alexander Payne's election kind of shows you exactly what real world politics are like just from the high school point of view. And I don't think it's changed that much. I mean, you get some fun stuff here, perspective from the nominees, you from the people that are running the election also. It's all over the place. It's a hoot, it's a holler, and I hope it doesn't make you baller. Welcome to Dead Cinema. I'm Brian Gillis.
And I'm Steven Maltmanex.
Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching the latest releases. However, it can sadly put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we miss, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
Hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
We'll move on now to the presidential race with 3 candidates running. The first is Tracy Flick.
One thing that's important to know about me is that I'm an only child.
The next candidate for student body president is Paul Metzler.
I just don't think somebody would do something like that on purpose.
I think you did it.
And if you want to keep questioning me like this, I won't continue without my attorney present. I do not often speak with you and ask for things, but now I really must insist that you help me win the election tomorrow, because I deserve it and Paul Metzler doesn't, as you well know.
I do not know how to start this episode. I mean, the intro kind of set it up.
Well,
but
I'll give you something. Like an idiot, my expectations for this movie, just based on the poster alone, made it seem like this would be a sort of fun type of high school comedy. You know, like it centers around like a high school kid's election, and hey, it's going to be a little cute and fun. Of course, I'm an idiot.
An Alexander Payne movie.
It's an Alexander Payne movie. I should have known better. I was the one that picked About Schmidt fucking months ago, for God's sake. So, yeah, that's on me. But that's not a knock on the movie at all.
Plus, it kind of is a cock tease, too. It starts as being an MTV film, which is just weird to think that Alexander Payne blew up because of MTV. They helped him really climb the ladder, because before this, the only thing he'd done is Citizen Ruth, which I still haven't seen. Might be an episode on the show later on. I think it's still on Netflix. And by the way, if you haven't seen this before, it's currently on Amazon Prime. It was taken off of Netflix at the beginning of the month, so just another thing that they have and Netflix doesn't. But yeah, it's just, I'm thinking about it, I forgot that this was an MTV movie. There's not the best list of things that Viacom produced under that umbrella.
Well, they're very
bizarre.
much targeted at a very specific demographic.
Uh-huh.
Like, you
And
know,
this
something
isn't
like
that.
Varsity Blues or Jackass. It's like, and then you have this. It's kind of weird.
I get it. This is Chris Klein and Reese Witherspoon before they were really anyone yet. But it is Matthew Broderick, I'm sure.
I think Reese Witherspoon at least had Pleasant Day and Pleasantville.
You mean Pleasantville?
Pleasantville, yeah.
Now, I'm pretty sure Pleasantville is after this.
No, that was 1998.
What year is this?
This is 99. Yeah, this is the same year that American Pie came out.
So
and
this
I don't,
is Chris Klein's
yeah.
year of success.
And I think that this followed it, because American Pie, that was a big summer hit. I'm not sure when this one came out. I want to say it was later in the year.
I just want to say that it's good. I mean, I picked it for obvious reasons. It's an election year. This is kind of about how silly politics can be, especially under the magnifying glass or the metaphor of it in a high school setting. And it's really not much different than anything else. Like, it's kind of timely and weird. This is a 1999 movie. I mean, obviously it's from a book. It's an adapted film. But there's some really weird allegories here to the Florida 2000 recount.
And this predates that too, so...
Yeah, shortly. And even more ironic is the 3 presidential candidates here kind of can be seen as 3 of the primary candidates currently. So you got Tracy Metzler, which is
clearly
basically Hillary. She's Hillary Clinton.
I was going to say she's more
Or not
Trump.
Metzler.
I mean, she's like...
Tracy Flick.
There were moments where I thought she was doing an impression of Sarah Palin.
She's more like when I
could
see her
hear like just something distinctive in that voice. I could see some.
Nebraskan.
Yeah.
But you got this try hard woman who's trying to be president at all odds, at any cost. She'll sleep her way there. Tammy Metzler is kind of like the Bernie Sanders. She doesn't give a shit about anything that's happened before. She just wants to talk. And then Paul is the Donald Trump. He's kind of stupid, but everyone likes him for some reason anyway.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't say he's Trump. I mean, not like.
Well, he's
not on
he's
the
no
surface
one in
at
this
all.
race.
Yeah,
he's
no,
no
I mean,
one.
Reese
It-
Witherspoon
it's-
is closer to Trump, honestly. She's kind of like
He's
a
the
weird mix of
weird-
that and Hillary.
It's like, how often is there a political candidate who's actually a nice guy? I mean, he got nothing going on in his head, but he's a nice guy. Like, legit, he's the only person in
Okay, I
this
see where
movie
you're
that
going with
isn't a
that.
bad person. Everyone is
No, he's
an asshole.
completely oblivious, to everything. I mean,
Yeah.
the way that he talks to, he's like, oh well, gosh, like, I mean, I would expect him to be like that asshole popular guy. He really kind of
Oz
weird,
Stryker from American Pie.
who just wants to get laid, and yeah, I don't know. Here, he just kind of seems like he just unwittingly ends up doing that.
Yeah.
I went to her hot tub and we had sex. And it
It's
was
like
nice.
after
Thank
school.
you, God.
Thank you. I love that prayer scene. It's probably one of the
Yeah.
weirdest things. First off, if you guys haven't seen this before, it is really weird for a comedy because it uses voiceover narration a lot. Like over half the dialogue isn't actually said like on the screen.
Weird comparison here, but this reminded me of Pain and Gain in that regard, in that you have so many characters on screen and you get just a little bit of their point of view each, and even though they don't all interact in similar ways, they're all doing their own thing, and then you're kind of just getting their side of the story.
I have not seen Pain and Gain more than once. I did not even recall
No,
the
well,
narration.
you
there.
know that I have. No, but I mean, Pain and Gain is just
No, yeah, I remember it
there's
being a good
scattered
movie.
narration throughout, and you're following a ton
But
of different characters.
this is constant. It starts with narration from Matthew Broderick's character, it ends with that. Every single major character has their own time,
Yeah.
like to shine on the mic, and it's weird because it's something that just comedies don't do. When you think of narration,
Pain and
it's
Gain did
something.
it, but
Well, it's like 20 years after the fact, or like 10 rather.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's really weird because it's good. Like the comedy comes from the narration. Usually, it's something like a film noir thing, or it can be used to somewhat comedic effect in something like American Beauty, which coincidentally is the same year and deals with some of the same things here. But yeah, that prayer scene, just like when it takes place, I love how Tammy's like, yeah, I don't really believe in you, God, but since I'm going to Catholic school, I
maybe I
figured,
should start.
yeah, I should start practicing.
I really do think it is a mess when you have that many points of view, but that's kind of the point of the movie, is that there's so many people here, and none of them are necessarily bad people. Like I kind of said the same thing with About Schmidt. It's just
Tracy's a
you
bad
s-
person.
I think you could find some admirable qualities here. The fact that she is a go-getter, that she is persistent,
doesn't mean her-
that is admirable. I mean, but
You haven't
the point
seen
is, though,
Parks and
you do see
Recreation.
most of these people at their worst or at their most complicated. Yeah, I guess Tracy's the most black and white one.
Parks and Rec, Amy Poehler's character, that like Leslie Knope, that's exactly the kind of character Tracy Fleck is. The same kind of go-getter, blonde, bright-eyed, like politician, will do anything to be in office. Except here, she's this conniving bitch that will literally step on people to get there. And Leslie Knope couldn't do a bad thing if she tried. Like she's the ethical, moral person, and Flick is fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's not one redeemable moment where she seems
Yeah.
like she's nice to anyone. And,
No.
she just gets away with tearing down those banners full on.
I love that scene. Like you can tell they only had like the money to do it maybe twice, and that cutaway to her hands with the paper cuts, which could have been real. It seems real authentic that like when she's in that rage and she's like, you motherfuckers, like she goes rabid like that. As soon as she's done, she's like, okay, I'm gonna get collected now.
She's a
Okay.
fucking crazy bitch, man.
Yeah.
No, she fully gives it her all. I mean, there is no question. Like, yes, it's definitely a memorable performance. Like, she definitely gives it her all. That's a character that you're gonna remember, and that's probably I guess one of the main standouts of the movie for
Yeah.
people that are looking at this movie seriously, I'm gonna remember Chris Klein just because it's fucking Chris Klein.
It's funny. Yeah.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
Have you seen Say It Ain't So?
No, I haven't. But I mean,
No,
this
it
did
came
make
out
me.
like
You're gonna laugh, but this did make me want to rewatch Street Fighter 2 just for Chris Klein's performance.
I did
'Cause
not
it's
see
a
the
horrible-
Chun-Li film.
It's a horrible movie, but
Skip
the
that.
only reason to watch it is for Chris Klein because every time he's on screen, it's fucking
when-
gold.
When that came out, I watched Smallville, and I had the hugest boner for Christine Krug, and that still couldn't get me to watch it. So I don't think I'll watch it for Chris
Oh,
Klein.
yeah.
If you like him,
It's
check
Fox in
out
their bad years, man.
No,
it's a
check
horrible
out-
movie.
check Say It Ain't So out. I think it came out in 2001. It was trying to, come off the success of American Pie franchise. It's Chris Klein thinking that he fucked his sister, who's played by Heather Graham, and he's like, "Say it ain't so, Lord, because I love her." Just a really weird movie, kind of like in the same vein of Bubble Boy, just really bizarre.
Adding it
One
to
of
the
the weird
letterbox
things-
list.
Okay, one of the weirder things about this movie is the score. That like good and the bad and the ugly esque like
Yeah.
Morricone thing that happens, the wars chant every time
I
you get
was-
a close up on someone's face.
It's a familiar tune. I think it's lifted from a Morricone score. I don't know which one, but I wasn't a fan of it. Or
It's really
I don't know.
weird.
It's probably just because I've heard it so many times. Like it works. I guess it's effective, but it just I don't know. Like for me, it was one of those things where it was just kind of like it's me not being in tune with the style of the movie.
I really like it though. It's like it's right before the oh shit moment of the movie where there's really really quick cutaways between close-ups of people's faces. I think it's like 5 faces and it becomes just kind of like one, and it has that music going and it's like whoa, that was probably my favorite editing moment in the movie. It was really cool. I was like, ooh, let me make a note of this. This is cool. This is cool. Plus just like the raised stakes of the fact that like the adversary for Matthew Broderick here, besides Tracy Flick and the bitch that ruined his marriage, is a janitor. Like,
I mean, that's the main thing is that karma in the end gets
Yeah.
back to him, and he gets the worst of it of all people.
It's like you threw that Chinese food down on the ground in the beginning and didn't care. Okay, well
That's
I don't
all
care
it
about
takes.
your job. That's all it takes. It's like when your job is cleaning floors and taking out the trash. Like you don't forget shit like that. I guess. At least not in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, man. Jesus, what is it with? Is Alexander Payne from Nebraska? Is that why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
'cause,
so all of his
I know, I
movies
brought that up in
besides
About
the-
Schmidt.
Yeah, The Descendants and Sideways.
Sideways?
Everything else is Nebraskan,
Gotcha.
especially Nebraska.
Duh.
But yeah, Broderick in this is really interesting. I mean, he kind of took a hiatus from Hollywood after Ferris Bueller. He did War Games, did that. He did like one or two other things. He's
Inspector
like in,
Gadget.
Yeah, well, that's
Did Lion
after
King?
this. That's voice acting. Yeah, but like he was in not The Graduate, but like The Freshman with Marlon Brando, which is like a really bizarre movie where Marlon Brando is basically pretending to be Marlon Brando in The Godfather, and there's like a Komodo dragon plot piece. But he was kind of like under the radar, didn't really do anything. I think that this kind of launched his career, even though he didn't do much after this either. You pointed out Inspector Gadget. I think he's better known for doing the Mel Brooks producers revival and that movie.
Well, that movie tanked when that came out too.
It didn't have to do well though.
I don't think it was that
because-
well received either.
No, it wasn't. It was not a good production. But him and Nathan Lane on Broadway were doing it, sold out shows. It's the reason why Young Frankenstein became a play too, or a musical rather. So it definitely helped him in that capacity. It was
Wait,
actually
so he was
weird.
actually in the Broadway play?
Yeah, they did like a big production. That's why it was a big deal that the movie got the same cast. It's just it was not a good movie.
All right, I didn't know that then.
But it's funny here because he's so against type. Like if you've only seen him in Ferris Bueller, which is the case for most people, him here is just like, what the fuck is going on? He's like this kind of creepy, kind of pathetic high school teacher who's overweight. He's got gray hair. He drives this really nerdy like Ford Fiesta with automatic seat belts. His life sucks. It's like,
he's just a guy. Like I like to think of it as like this is what happened if Ferris Bueller's life went to shit. And
Yeah.
even though he in the voiceover he's saying things like oh I love my life, I love what I do. Bullshit.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of it, I kind of get that sense when he goes to New York and when he actually looks like Ferris again. Like, pretty sure they shot the New York stuff first and then he put on the weight. But you get that one moment after he has sex with whatever her name is, and he's driving, and it does like that weird like backdrop Italian car smoking while driving type thing, and he's like, I'm the shit. And then it has a fucking L cut with his regular tire squeaking, which is like a trend in this movie. You hear lots of brake squeal.
Well, see, you've seen this enough times to catch that.
I was looking for things that I've never seen. The major one being the fruit. When maybe you didn't catch it, but when Mr. McAllister is talking to Paul.
The pears and apples scene.
Exactly. He's like, "What's your favorite?" Pears. Wait, no, apples. And he's like, "Okay, well, there's apples, and then all you have is apples, and then you get oranges, and then there's banana." Like 10 minutes after that scene, when his sister's making out with that girl in their house, the first shot you get in their house is a fruit bowl.
Oh, dude, that's fucking awesome.
With, guess what?
Pears,
apples, oranges, and a banana. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Super cool. And then it goes like a step beyond that. When Matthew Broderick comes home, and it's like a nothing scene. He's just at home. He grabs an apple, because that's the one that he picks. But what's even crazier is when the bee stings him later on in the movie, those bees were flying around an apple tree. And I was like, this is like next level shit. Was this in the novel? Is this Alexander Payne just being like, look at what I can do, motherfuckers? But it was, yeah, it had to be an intentional thing. There's no way, especially with it ending in the Big Apple. Like, I think it's apples are Tracy, oranges are Paul, and then what's her name? Tammy is the banana. She's the odd banana out. There has to be something there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised in the novel if there's actually like some kind of page markers that way. But it wasn't coincidence. I was happy I know something like that this time around.
Now, so how many times have you seen this movie?
This might have been the third time.
I mean, not to get to the ending of this yet, but is this something you would buy for $1?
Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly my kind of movie. I'd love to see it in a theater. It's so weird and awkward, and there's just nothing bad about it. It's a really, like, very competent comedy. It's not a riot. You're not laughing all over the place. But just the irony of the situations, how painfully awkward some of the chemistry is between people. That assembly where Tammy goes off and everyone's like cheering for her. There's enough here that it's in high school. It's a high school movie that we never get. It is like its own thing. Like, political not parties, but the campaign in high school isn't really important. But the way it kind of spins it, and it's, like I said earlier, the petri dish for how the world is, and not just like politics at a larger level, but kind of the world as a whole. And also, what Alexander Payne's kind of done since then and how he's acclaimed. Yeah, I'd buy this one for $1. It's a very solid movie from the 90s. It really does stand on its own. Like, it's not forgettable, even if it's just the bee sting on the eye.
Well, I'm not going to give it our prestigious recommendation here yet. I mean, I realize more and more that, like, I think when I say that, it usually means that it's bound to become a favorite of mine. And this is, like, the case with movies like this is that I tend to be much more underwhelmed the first time, but I get it more and more as I watch it.
Yeah.
I could see this being that, like, especially when you bring up the fruit. It's like, I mean, fuck, really, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like just next level.
I certainly, maybe, again, I do think I probably would have preferred this with a crowd as well, because when I'm watching black comedies alone at home, it just, I feel like so many jokes just go over my head because I'm focused on something else. And I don't know, maybe I need that audience experience to take things a little less seriously, even though, yeah, there's clearly some funny moments here, but it really left me feeling like crap, and that's kind of to the movie's credit. But
it's to the director's really, credit.
Yeah. Then again, though, so did About Schmidt. But
so all of his movies, if you haven't seen them. The
Descendants Descendants ended on a bit more
feel
of a
good
note.
Yeah,
and that was my first one, so.
No weird choice.
Again, yeah, bad start. I start with Darjeeling Limited for Wes Anderson. I start with Descendants on Alexander Payne. I make weird choices. Did
you start with Pearl Harbor for Michael Bay?
Actually, yeah.
Oh, that's why you like it, man.
I think that is the first one.
That's sad.
Yeah. Actually, Okay, first completed one. I think I at least saw parts of Armageddon when I was a kid. The biggest it left me feeling like shit. And I guess the thing I really got out of it is that, man, life's just one big fucking joke. I mean, this is kind of about just the chaos of life and just people around you. And like in the case of Matthew Broderick's character, how even regular life still has to move while he's trying to satisfy his own selfish needs. That also goes for Tammy. That
Tracy.
that pretty much goes for everybody except for Chris Klein, who's just kind of hanging loose the whole time.
Because he's too stupid to have a real agenda. Like, it's all like, it goes back to that prayer scene too. Like, if you just see that, their motivations. Like I said earlier, Tracy's like, "Fuck you guys, just let me win. Like, I'll do anything for you, God. You know I deserve it. You know it.
They're all sitting there, just they're talking to God like they're sitting on Santa Claus's lap, expecting to get shit because they feel they deserve it. It's not because they have any actual faith or take any good messages from religion about doing good onto your fellow man. Nothing like that. No, they just want shit. Like, especially in the case of Tracy, because she's like, "Hey, let me win because I deserve it."
Yeah. Well, Chris Klein's not like that though. Like, his character, like, because he's an airhead, he's like, first off, thank you, God. I was pretty bummed about my leg, but it's all come around, and it would be really cool if either Tracy or Tammy won, but if I won too, that would be nice. Like, he seems like he's actually happy about his life, and he also has this side of him where he's like a party animal, and he's the football star and all this shit. But he's just grounded. It seems, it's like one of those people that you meet in high school that is so down to earth that you kind of can't believe it when they should have a huge ego. But in his case, it's because he's kind of stupid.
No, but it is nice that he's not just like Oz in American Pie.
Yeah.
Probably the funniest moment for me is probably the assembly when Tammy's just going on her whole, don't vote for me, don't buy into the shit. And she's giving good reasons of why it's all BS. And then later on, like, she just kind of unwittingly just ends up hypocritically advocating for, like, and pandering to everybody else in the audience. It's like, "Hey, and if you vote for me, I'll get rid of all this stupid shit. We will never have to go to an assembly like this," as if you had the power to do that.
It's funny because the stuff she says in that assembly is basically what I actually think about politics. Like,
I think I see why you're saying that, but of course there's as far as what's presented in the media, and what gets sensationalized, yes, but there is far more of importance of what actually goes on.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't say it's unimportant. Her viewpoint is that it doesn't matter who you vote for. It's going to be the same shit. No one's going to make any real changes. It's going to be the same high school. It's going to be the same people. It's going to be the same drama. It's just going to be another year with another person. And that's exactly how I've always felt about rat races, unless it's on a very local level. Unless you're talking about city council or, like, state senate, I don't give a shit.
No, historically we've had some pretty huge changes. It's just we're in a pretty weird time right now where nothing is getting done.
If FDR didn't die in office, he would have dropped the bomb. Truman's special because he did. Well, FDR would have done it anyway. Yeah, like, a president's a president. Like Obama, as much as, free healthcare is a good thing, that's the one thing he did. With 8 years in office, he got us all healthcare, which was probably going to happen anyway, regardless of the president.
Yeah, but it still had to be someone. That is technically a change.
It is a change.
You're saying, it's okay. I don't know. You're just making it sound like, shit's not going to get done anyway. No, of course.
There's obviously the major, Abraham Lincoln, obviously one of the best presidents we've ever had.
That's the big one, yeah.
But in that time, with where the country was going in terms of North versus South, there was going to be a civil war probably anyway. It's just the president that was elected helped facilitate that. I'm not a fan of the kind of mental masturbation we give to people in politics. I mean, you watch them like House of Cards, it's kind of similar to this movie. It's like, do you really take for a second, do you really believe that anyone in office isn't a cutthroat? Especially when he comes to that office?
It's not just one person that I look at for when I vote. I mean, I agree definitely on what you're saying, especially when they're at rallies or they're at debates. Like, I mean, the way that pep assembly went down, I mean, that it's basically the same thing. She was pandering to everybody, just like, you know, as much as like I do believe Bernie Sanders, you know, as consistent as he is, he's like speaking from an honest
Yeah,
place.
we
It's
want to
still,
believe he's real.
you can still see his tactics of like when he's specifically talking and he's picking up the momentum of his speech, that this is a moment where people should be clapping out loud as he's raising his voice. Like you can tell that by design, that's kind of what he's doing.
That's why he has a
intentionally.
speechwriter that gets paid a lot of money. Yeah, like people forget that, especially because the speechwriters aren't publicized.
Mm-hmm.
But every political candidate,
Yeah.
every president, everyone in office has a speechwriter, and
I mean,
sometimes
they are all doing it by design.
Yeah, so
Even though
R.L.
I don't know, Bernie might
Stein-
have fewer people on his payroll. I don't know, but
R.L. Stein was a writer for Ronald Reagan. Like he helped write
Holy shit.
his speeches. Yeah, like that's
I would much rather see that story instead of Goosebumps 2.
or not R.L. Stein. I'm sorry. I mean Ben Stein from When Ben Stein's Money.
You're killing me. You're fucking killing me, Brian.
Sorry.
That sounded awesome.
It still is awesome.
It is. It would have been awesome. God damn it.
Bueller. I wrote the president's speeches. Oh, I don't got much else to say on this. I really like its message about morals versus ethics, and just the way it starts. Like, you have that class. Like, it's a great example of opening and closing images. It starts with Broderick in his classroom, and he's trying to ask them questions like, what's the difference between morals and ethics? And Tracy can't stop putting her hand up. And so he's going around the room trying to get everyone else. And he's like, fine, I'll fucking ask her. And you get that freeze frame of her face. And it's like the ugliest looking thing you've ever seen. And the first thing you hear is, her pussy gets so wet. Like, it sets up this just Shakespearean like hatred between the two. Like she hates this guy in charge of the politics in the school because he's the loser friend of the guy that was fucking her, or whatever her reason is. It's just he's another guy in the way, and then he hates her because he was jealous that he didn't get a fucker.
I think in closing, it's just like about Schmidt. I love the fact that this presents characters that are human, that that as well intentioned as some of them are, we still see them at their worst, at their own flaws, and we see this more selfish aspects out of them. I About Schmidt's far more quiet, and much more. This is closer to Goodfellas, or like I said, like Pain and Gain, which. It's funny. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that movie, at least in its script, took some influence from this, especially with how you're talking about it, that freeze frame and how it cuts back to time and has a montage set to voiceover that gives us more information on not just Tracy, but more into Matthew Broderick's point of view of his thoughts of her. Jesus, I'm slurring everywhere. Little things like that I think make this movie much more memorable than About Schmidt, at least, from just a technical standpoint of how this is all woven together. But I think at the end of the day, maybe it's just that I was much more. I think the tragedy of About Schmidt maybe just resonated more with me, or maybe it's just because I fucking love Jack Nicholson and think he's one of the greatest actors of all time. But
Could be any number of things. To be honest, because, like I said, it could be any number of things. Preference for actor, the fact that About Schmidt's a road movie, it deals with something that's less. Like I said, this is a fairly uncommon story in its setting, but the political trailblazer isn't something that you don't see infrequently, especially just in the news now. Whereas the old man who just retired / is widowed, going on the road. Or widowed, I guess, going on the road and trying to figure out who he is. Like, that is just a much more interesting story. Plus, that movie was a lot funnier.
Yeah,
I remember laughing my ass off in some of those scenes.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it is probably election informs, the world and our reality, whereas About Schmidt, it's much more intimate, much more personal, and is more of a slow burn that I think that probably speaks to more of just fears going forward in life of mine in general, and that's probably why I liked it more.
It's a more artsy movie. Like what we say, like Jack Nicholson doesn't talk for like almost 10 minutes to have
He's
not just
very,
your star
very understated the whole time.
Not just that, but like he literally doesn't say a thing basically until he starts writing the letter to Ngungu. Like once that happens, yeah, as I said about 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, I'd definitely buy this one for $1. I'm with you though when you said like on your first watch you didn't quite get it. I remember feeling the same way, just thinking this movie's really overrated. And the second time, like something like kind of like that too. But last night, it was a really fun watch. It was just expert filmmaking, especially for his second project. Just it's made so competently, from like the
Yeah.
sound design to the music to the acting, just the narration, just
Set
to put
design and the
this,
placement of fruit.
yeah, just to put all this together in what should have been an MTV high school movie. It's really impressive. It's iconic now. Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure. If you like this show and you want to hear more of our wonderful voices on a weekly basis, check out 2 Cents. I'll recap what's happened in film, TV, and tech news.
We're also on the titular Dollar Review Show, a spoiler-free critique of new releases or anything we've discovered on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
We're available on iTunes, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher, and constantly looking to expand to other platforms.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BryonGillis, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.